And we are live. Welcome, everyone, whoever is joining us in many places in the world. Once again, we are scattered in many places in the world. I am Martin Gaffuri from France, directly from the studios. I am with Corinne Malcolm. Welcome, Corinne. And for you, it is slightly later in the day.
Yeah, later in the day or very, very early in the day. It's 12:30 a.m. here in the US as I woke up very, very early, I guess technically, to join you to talk about the 55K that's going on this weekend before a whole weekend of commentary.
Correct, and I am glad you're joining me. Welcome, everyone. This is going to be a fun 3 days. 3 big races for this major event of the UTMB World Series, Val d'Aran. We are with the PDA, the 55 kilometers that started this morning, local time 7:30. It is currently 9:30 local time. So they've been 2 hours into the race. We'll tell you a lot more about this. And then tomorrow we'll have the 100K in on Saturday, the 100 miles. All of them, once again, as talked about, this is a major event for the European continent, which means that many more people will be able to qualify directly to UTMB Mont-Blanc, the final of the UTMB World Series. We'll talk about this times and times again. There's going to be qualifiers also for age groups, plenty of different things to experience in this very specific event being a major. Yes, so just a heads up, we had an update from the field, and as much as those drone images are pretty fantastic and don't show that too much, the weather is pretty bad, and there's been heavy rains and heavy, like pretty strong winds that blow out a few tents at aid stations. So we're hoping to have as much images as possible, but bear with us. The conditions are definitely far from ideal.
Yeah, I hope that we get a little bit of that imagery of things being completely blown over out at aid stations. But yeah, this drone image right now around 18-20K into the race looks picture perfect.
Yes, and that's, if I'm right, that's the top of the first climb, which is extremely long. As you said, like about 16, 17K into the race. And you can see all around the Spanish Pyrenees, around the city of Viella, which is the heart of the Val d'Aran by UTMB event, where all races finish, and even some of them start. The 100-mile starts in Viella as well. And we've got a pretty big lineup here in this 50K. So technically, it is the 50K category. You'll see that on your screen. But the true distance is 55 kilometers, 3,300 meters of elevation gain. It's a point-to-point race, and it has 3,700 meters of elevation loss, so 400 more downhill in this race. And as you can see, the uphill and the downhill are pretty steep. So I believe, Corinne, we're going into a quick recap of the event last year everything that took place in 2022. And yes, you could see lots of emotions at last year's event, with many good people crossing the finish line on the top spots, punching their tickets for the UTMB final. Amongst them, Germain Granger had won the 100 mile in the men's. Katie Scheid, recent second place at Western States that you must have seen quite a bit recently, Corinne. Won the 100K.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, oh, Katie Scheid, super familiar with that victory for her at the 100K here last year. Just got to watch her absolutely smash the Western States 100 just a couple weeks ago. So yeah, lots of familiar faces crossing the line here last year. And I think, as you mentioned earlier, what makes this race so special is that it is a World Series major for the European continent. So there's more spots on the line to get into UTMB, CCC, and OCC. Obviously, today's race, the 55K qualifying runners for OCC. So 10 spots on the line for the elites, as well as age group positions available as well, which I think is just, it puts together oftentimes a little bit more competitive of a field within the UTMB World Series right now.
Yeah, it's great. And as you said, there's very two parts, and sometimes we tend to forget. Like for the elites, they're able to top spots with guaranteed entries, but for all the other ones who are still trying to get in and need running stones, they at the major events they get twice the amount of running stones, and therefore for this 50K they get 4 stones in the bag if they're finisher. And that means, once again, if you're not familiar with the system, it's as a stone is equivalent to a ticket for a lottery. So the more stones you've got, the more chances you have to get drawn. And an important, interesting statistic is that whoever had, I think it was more than 10 stones, all got in the races they had applied to.
That's pretty huge. Yeah, double stones on the line is definitely not a statement I think I ever thought I'd say, but it is true at these races that there is kind of that extra incentive for everyone in the field, not just for the elites at the front of it.
And so you see this long climb up the valley and then up the exposed part that keeps going, and that's a 1200 meter, no 14, like, oh no, 1300. My math is definitely not as good. Climb before dropping down and coming back almost to the start, but on the upper part, and then around, and then they're gonna take a hard left for the final climb. . And actually, it is at the bottom of that climb that everything happened last year in a race for the men's race, where it was Young Yoon who had waited the whole time and then reeled in the lead pack at the bottom of that climb, and then just put on an extra gear to pass everyone and pulled away, and then he won the race like that. And that was quite inspiring. How he made a massive difference, and his race management was spot on. And so I think in
Yeah.
between those drone images, we'll also have the presentation of some of our elite athletes as well. So I think this is coming up next.
Yeah, we'll keep our eyes on it. I know that going into every single one of these races, it's a little bit of kind of us sourcing information on the backside, who is going to be there, who isn't going to be there, last minute entries, last minutes, not going to make the trip because
Yes.
maybe a different race went well, or they're doing something else instead. So it's been kind of a interesting process trying to figure out who is actually in the events this weekend, but really great. Actually, you just got to see this woman race at Marathon du Mont Blanc 2 weeks ago, right?
Correct. And yeah, it was an impressive performance for Oceania Cortazar. Um, yeah, she was third at Mont Blanc Marathon after battling it really, really hard back and forth with Yao Miao from China. Um, so I don't know. It's a hit or miss. Is she going to be still recovered from such a hard race, or is she still on the high and will take advantage of her fitness to deliver like another very strong performance? For sure, this is a course for her. She likes the technical and the up and down, but so does Anna Comet. Um, I haven't seen her race earlier this year, so it will be interesting to see what she has in the bag. But most likely, she's coming here to get her qualifier for, as you said, either OCC or CCC, and I believe she can certainly squeeze into the top 10 to get that automatic entry. And
Yeah, important to know that the top 10 is really important there, and I do think that people will stick out bad days too, just to make sure that they've got that OCC qualifier in the bag.
mm, and so Monica Vives currently is sitting in fourth, because as if you're joining us, the race has started like now 2 hours and 15 minutes ago. Oh yeah, it's right up there on the screen. And so now we have some splits already. So Oyana Cortazar is leading, followed by Anna Comet, and it's Lady Paola Ormazza, who's in third place in the women's category. Monica Vives being in fourth, so nothing is done yet. This is the early days, and if indeed the weather it can be changing, they were saying high winds, rain, and even very slippery terrain, so that could be a bit of a challenge. Here, if you've been following us just a little bit, Aritz Area is definitely a name that you're familiar with, and we like without a surprise, we were expecting to be in the front of the race. He's currently sitting in second behind Raúl Criado, a young Spanish runner who's taken at the lead, but they're not far apart, like some 2.5 minutes. And then let's see who we got in second. Borja Fernandez, another very strong runner who's made the Spanish national teams many times, and scored already quite a few races this this early season. Currently, Borja Fernandez is not sitting in the top 10, so hopefully he's not having a bad day. And Craig Hunt, there you go. The US of A being represented. But then I'm afraid Craig Hunt isn't in the top 10 either at this point.
Yeah, he was early on. He's definitely someone who races, I think, a little bit aggressively. Comes from a really fast kind of road background. Is a good 50K road runner more than anything. He just ran Marathon du Mont-Blanc, didn't have a great day there, and represented the U.S. at the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships. But he races a lot, I think, is a big thing that I've noticed with him. And I think he's just, he's really new to the trail scene. So I think he's just kind of trying a little bit of everything.
Right. No, and now you mention it. Yeah, he was like in the lead at Mont-Blanc Marathon for a bit, didn't it? Wasn't he? I think now the name
I actually didn't watch
coming back to me.
that race, but he's so fast on the road that wouldn't surprise me that like he'd be able to push the pace super early at a race like Marathon du Mont-Blanc.
Yeah, I think that was him. So that's going to be a bit of a change for him because, I mean, obviously, as you can see on the images, this is big mountain environment with lots of lakes, glacier-fed lakes. This whole area is known for it. And from the feedback that we got from the participants in last year's edition, the first time Val d'Aran by UTMB was part of the UTMB World Series and a major. Everybody was saying that race, like UTMB should be the qualifier for that race because it was so technical, so difficult in terms of terrain, very, very challenging, and all the way until the end. And you'll see because all three courses follow that same route down into Viella for the finish, and it's very, very brutal. So yeah, if Craig Hunt is not too familiar with big mountains and European type trails, that might explain why he's a little further behind at this point, at least. And then I'd say, like in the rest of the men's field, I'm looking at it right now. Bernard De Matteis from Italy. I think that's the first time he's going that far. He's a very strong mountain runner in the kind of federal sense of it. So very short, fast races, sub 15K. But I think he's done half marathons and stuff. But I don't think he's ever done 55 kilometers. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do. Younger runner, but who's proven that he belongs to the world scene, Daniel Castillo from Wild Trail Project from Spain is in fifth right now. Roberto Heras, I mean, if you've been following the trail running scene for a while, you will be familiar with Miguel Heras, and this is Roberto Heras is Miguel's brother, and who used to be a pro cyclist and has transitioned into trail running, air quote, for fun, but obviously being still a bit competitive. And in the women's field, aside from the three women we talked about, Holly Wooten from AC Keswick from Great Britain, Ellie Gordon, that I'm really excited to see back running. I don't know exactly what happened to her. Like a few years ago, I remember she was extremely strong, battling it out in the Golden Trail World Series, and it's good to see her back racing. She's almost too quiet of a human. We always want to know a bit more about her, but she really keeps it to herself.
Yeah, I was just looking to see if Bernard has run anything longer. He has run up to like 40K or so. So he's done a little bit longer stuff, but I think last year, he and his brother are both known for being more short distance athletes. He did run the 35K at South Africa and at Ultra Trail Cape Town last fall as well.
Right.
But yeah, he and his twin brother definitely throw people for a loop.
Yeah, and they're also like pretty big party animals. They're really fun to be around.
Yeah.
So that's the start. We have the recap images of the start, and there he is actually on the left side in black and white with the Terex kit, Bernard de Mateis. And so yeah, they're coming out of Salardou. It's a point-to-point race again, so they're 400 meters above Viella. And after a quick run through town, they start climbing, and you see on the ground everything's wet and clouds are loaded. And I hope we'll get to see a bit more images. I think on the right-hand side from the back, you can see Borja Fernandez, but he's already a little bit further back in the lead pack.
Yeah, the Hoka t-shirt there is the backside of Craig Hunt near the front of that pack early on as well.
And I think on the right, blonde head without a cap is Daniel Castillo. So yeah, we've got good runners in the early stage here as they're kind of transitioning away from the city, still on road at this point. And then things will get serious, and it's pretty much climbing, like we said, for about 18 Ks and 1,200 meters of ascent.
Yeah, we should mention the top 10 plus men have come through the 24-kilometer mark, so they've hit the top of that first ascent and descended down to that next aid station around the 24-kilometer mark. I don't think our women are to that point yet. They're expected, actually, the top 4 women are expected at that 24-kilometer mark imminently, that they have, the top 10 have all crested that top of that first climb at 18 kilometers and are making their way down to that next aid station at 24 kilometers as well. But it's nice, even with the bad weather early on, that limited us before we even went live, but also just nice to have the replay from this morning's fast start of the race before they left the tarmac and headed up that big first long climb. You said 1,300 meters, 1,400 meters? That's a sizable chunk to tackle in the first 18K.
Yeah, yes, indeed. Like to get started, you better be warmed up. Again, people were saying that the terrain is very slippery. So if you also don't have the perfect traction, that could cost you even more to get yourself up the hill. So that'll be interesting to see who's in the front and see what choice of footwear they've made. And yes, you've already you're ahead of me on the chat. Good morning to everyone again. Ryan, hello from Romania.
tomorrow.
Oh, there we go. It looks like we're back, ladies and gentlemen. We've been talking so much and you missed out on this. God, so bad. But it's okay because we have the images and we have had the time to figure out what was going on. We've been told the weather was bad, but Corinne, as we were discussing, it looks pretty damn good here, which is exciting, which makes for a better race and better images as well. So if at home you were trying to guess who is on the images, our wild guess would be Raul Criedo, currently in the lead, the young runner from Spain, who's had a very strong performance at La Skyrun, which is a very short, very intense up-down race in the French Pyrenees. Yeah, seems to be leading some big names, such as Aritz Egea and Bernard de Matteis. And Corinne, what's your guess for second place based on what we've seen?
Oof. I mean, I think, like we mentioned off air, that the 50K or the 55K this weekend is going to be an incredibly competitive race. Interestingly, Raul and Bernard probably have the least experience at this distance in the field in the top 10. So it's kind of like what will happen in that final descent. I think that they both have legs. You know, they still have to make it up this climb, down a long descent, and then one more very punchy climb before a downhill finish. But yeah, I mean, I think that I'm biased, right? I have to root for Bernard de Matteis, like representing Adidas Terex out there today would be.
Dacia, partenaire automobile officiel de l'UTMB World Series.
Oh, these are great aerial shots. They've crested that climb and they're descending really fast over relatively rocky, we think kind of greasy, wet terrain as well from the earlier storms. So this is really, really impressive to watch. I believe that's probably our lead runner followed by a camera runner, is my guess.
That is insane. I mean, the pace at which they were running down that section, and as you can see, they took the European way. They went straight down the switchback. Whoa! That's it. When you take chances, yeah, it is Corinne.
Is that a camera runner, or is that two runners together?
No, you're right. This is a camera runner, the second runner. He's got his hand like pointing forward, and he like almost tried to accelerate to catch the images of that leader running. That was insane. But like, I don't think you're supposed to take such risks so early on, because I mean, hopefully.
Well, it is Raul.
No,
it is Raul out front. So the young gun is making a big statement thus far. You know, he's currently 28 kilometers into a 55-kilometer day. We'll see if he can continue to push at the front of the race like this, but so far making a big statement as our drone goes back up towards the top of that climb to see if we can pick up our second and third runners in the men's race today, because we should have our next two runners through that aid station, I believe, in not that long. I don't think the gap has been opened up so big. The timing predictor has a 20-minute gap, but I don't think that that's accurate. So we'll have to
Yeah,
see. Given that there's another runner coming down right now, I would say that's not accurate. And that looks
and
like that
then
might be Aritz.
yeah, looking at the with the arms a little down, I would say that's Aritz with a cap on to protect himself. And see, Aritz is an extremely strong downhill runner, and he's already moving really
That's
well.
steep.
But oh yeah, that is the staple truly of this whole event, the Val d'Aran by UTMB. The courses are extremely hard. See here, it's completely of piste. You do have a single track, but runners just go straight down. And Aritz here on your images, once again, he's done like excellent results in skyrunning races. Like he knows how to run on technical, and yet I don't think he's going nearly as fast as Raul was going when he went through. So obviously you've got Aritz's experience talking and be like, there's no need to blast myself so early because, as you said, Corinne, they're far from the finish and there will be pretty significant obstacle coming up with the last climb and last descent. But yet he is
Yep.
pulling away.
And
Raul is.
oh yeah, I was gonna say you're right. Raul is pulling away, and Bernard is through that top of that climb as well. So 1, 2, and 3, all through that top of that climb in pretty quick succession. The gap between first and third is just about 2.5 minutes. So it's still very, very tight between those our top 3 leaders.
Yeah. Let's remember that split and see at the next one after that long downhill what's gonna happen. Oh, there's a yeah. I mean, when you see Eric's dancing like this, it must be really, really technical in here. Like always, the aerial shots kind of flatten the terrain, but you can definitely guess how steep it is when you see Eric's holding on to the grass. What a beautiful place to be running. And so, yeah, as you said, Corinne, we had the camera runner with our race leader, with Raul, but probably something was not going too right because we didn't get any images of that. Hopefully, things will come back uh, to normal. They were really bad weather conditions before we got live, so perhaps that has disrupted a little bit the quality of the cell coverage and the overall network.
Yeah, and those drone images are always going to be a little bit steadier as far as like image quality when service is otherwise not so good. So I'm glad that we've got drones in the air this weekend, given the weather challenges we had earlier in today's race. But yeah, just over 2.5 hours in, we do have an update on the women's field through the aid station at the 24-kilometer mark. So they are now making their way up to that climb that we just saw our lead men come through. And I think it's all the usual suspects. Top 4 women are through there, with it being a Spanish sweep right now on the women's side.
Yeah, which is not surprising in a way because this terrain is so unique that if you train on this, if this is something you're familiar with in terms of footing, in terms of steep up and down, um, this will definitely be a massive advantage. And when it comes to using poles, sometimes as a runner, especially the leaders, you can question using poles in a 55K. But when you see the stats with 3,300 meters of climb, this definitely is a must going uphill. And this probably is why also our camera runner could not keep up going up because obviously they can't use poles. And Raul was making good use of them on the climb to that last aid station.
Yeah, I wonder if this drone is going to pick up Bernard. I keep wanting to call him Martin. Martin is his twin brother.
There we go. Yeah. Oh, there he is, I think. No, I think he must already have gone through.
Yeah, he's probably already gone. Yeah, we've got our top 8 men through that aid station with only 6.5 minutes separating first through eighth. So still, all those men are very much in it at this junction. But yeah, here's a replay. We're gonna see our runner take a fall. Yeah, big kind of tumble
Wow.
right there. Actually, kind of a huge tumble in that rocky section.
Yeah, and he must have been holding onto the branch which ended up turning him around. Hopefully, no damage here. But yeah, as we said, it is early to be taking chances. But sometimes youth and excitement we'll take it home. We're talking about this off air with Corinne. Is like, hey, who knows? Maybe he's gonna hold it together for the whole length of that race and win the PDA ahead of big names. That'd be a first for Raul.
Yeah, someone to keep our eyes on at OCC at the end of August. If he continues on like this, I think that stamps his name in the contenders category for OCC if he can pull off a win here today with some really aggressive early racing as well.
And so last year the conditions should be quite similar. And all courses go through that, making that event one of the hardest and most technical ones in the UTMB World Series circuit. And I'm looking because
We're back. Looking at the top of that climb, that 27.5, 28 kilometer mark that we've seen our top 10 men come through. And you can see that line, that conga line of runners spread out there, 1, 2, 3, 4, making their way up to the top of that checkpoint before descending a very steep slope that we saw our current race leader, our early race leader, Raul, take a little bit of a tumble on not all that long ago.
Yeah, and I'm looking for the winning time of Maite Mayora last year, but I can't seem to find her. Maite, who will be back this year?
Yep, you're right. I feel like last year it was quite warm at this race. You were on site for it. Was that just my perception, or was it a warm event last year?
It was a warm event for the most part, and people actually struggled because of the heat in some places where the aid stations were quite spread out and they hadn't anticipated correctly their need for fluids. But we also had rain. I think it was overnight for the 100 mile. So it was
Okay.
quite varied. I think in a way that part of the Pyrenees is similar to some of the mountains in the U.S. where you have like afternoon thunderstorms. So the weather can change pretty quickly. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. And that's why actually the mandatory equipment for all these races is actually quite substantial. So on those images of 27K into the race of the 50K, we'll have a short commercial break and we'll be back with you shortly. Stay with us.
The Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc is the Super Bowl of trail running.
3 times I've raced UTMB. I feel like I've underperformed every time.
He sets the biggest goals possible.
I kind of say it's like digging a hole. It gets tiring, it gets hard, and for some reason you just go, I'm just gonna keep digging. The places where you really grow are the ones that keep kicking you in the teeth.
All right, and we're back,
And we're
ladies
back.
and gentlemen.
Heck yeah. Jinx. We say jinx when you say something at the exact same time. Say the exact same thing at the exact same time. So jinx, Martin. But yeah, we're back this
Jinx.
morning, almost 3 hours into the race. They started at 7:30 a.m. local time. In the midst of a big rainstorm, we heard that tents were being blown away at aid stations, but you would not know that looking at this amazing drone footage as our men and women make their way up to the 28-kilometer mark at the top of this climb before they descend off a very steep slope just beyond it. And you were mentioning that akin to mountains in the U.S., like in the Rocky Mountains out west, that the weather is super variable in this region in the Pyrenees, where weather systems can move in and out very quickly. In the U.S. and the West, we've got afternoon thunderstorms happen like every single day in the mountains. And so you were saying that the mandatory kit for this race is quite extensive just due to the variability in extreme weather.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, like, when you say, oh, for UTMB, I need to carry all this equipment. So you see they're all carrying a pack, and so they needed to have, I mean, obviously the usual with like mobile phone, the survival blanket, 1 liter minimum capacity, a headlamp with spare batteries, but then you also need to have like medical tape, um, a waterproof jacket with hood, waterproof pants, hat, gloves, long johns. Do you say that, or is this Kiwi?
Yeah, or like long johns are like a base layer, essentially. You can use this
Yeah.
interchangeably.
Cool, thanks. So basically, you're both for pants and top. So yeah, that's quite a lot to be carrying in for a 50K. But once again, weather can change very quickly, and as you can see, it is quite exposed. So I think we're waiting for the first female. No, they've gone. They must have gone through now. Let's see.
Our first women aren't yet through the top of the
No, you're right.
28K mark yet. They should be there in the next 20 or so minutes. Oana, Anna, and Monica, the Spanish trio, should be leading that charge, followed by Lady from Colombia, and then Holly Wooten, who we mentioned earlier, from Great Britain, rounding at that top 5 group. We expect them there in the next 20 to 50 minutes. I do think that our top 3 women have quite a sizable gap over the chasing pack, kind of in 4, 5, and 6.
Yeah, it looks like it's gonna be an exciting race in the women's as well.
Yeah, tight racing at the front makes things excited. We love to see it. It definitely makes things, I think, more interesting. That looks like Craig Hunt to me, finally making his way to the top of this climb. That Hoka top. He wouldn't be one to wear a pack. He'll be trying to fit all that mandatory gear into a waist belt, but he is using poles, and if that is Craig Hunt, he's using poles quite effectively on that climb, using kind of that I'd call like a double pole technique, throwing his arms out in front of him and then really powering his way through. That is a good like steep climbing technique with the poles. So I do believe that is Craig Hunt, the American, finally making his way over that top of the 28K mark, though, just who we just saw on screen.
Yes, Corinne, that was exactly my thought. I was like, man, for an American, he's making good use of his poles because we always joke about like you guys being less used to using poles simply because the trails over in the US are never or rarely as steep as they are. But yeah, he was doing really well. He was doing really well. Probably
Yeah, come hang out where I live. We in a 2.5 mile climb yesterday, we had 4,000 feet of climbing. So we have some steep stuff around where I live, but I think in part we were talking about Craig being more of a road runner, more new to trails, and so in my mind too, like he's looking really comfortable with poles. He's clearly putting the time in somewhere. I don't think that he comes from like a skiing background, either skimo or Nordic skiing, and so that is like impressive. Just like putting the time in to make that, to feel more comfortable, to be more comfortable with it in that terrain. But yeah, he's sitting back in 21st position right now, having just made his way through the 28-kilometer mark. That's quite a checkpoint to man, just sitting out there on the top, no shelter all day.
Yeah,
That's not a
yeah,
bad volunteer position.
yeah. You have to make your way up there, but yeah, if you're keen for beautiful views and solid climb, then it's pretty epic indeed to be posted up there. And yeah, we'll cross our fingers that the rain doesn't hit those guys because I mean they look covered. They That's the thing with volunteers that give their time. Usually they are mountain people and they appreciate being out there, so that'll be prepared for sure.
Yeah, they're definitely the prepared sorts, but it's really, I haven't gotten to spend any time in the Pyrenees, and these images really are selling it, I think, quite strongly. And that for those who were following along with the World Mountain and Trail Running Championships that happened in Innsbruck back in June, um, in 2 years' time, in 2025, the next set of World Mountain and Trail Running Championships will be taking place in the Pyrenees, which I think this is a definitely, maybe tantalizing to know that you could be racing here in just 2 years. I wonder if there'll be anyone who comes to do some races in the Pyrenees next year, kind of in the off year before World Championships, comes to a race like Val d'Aran just to be in this type of terrain and preps for the World Championships in the fall of 2025 in this region.
Yes, that's very true, Corinne. That race will be in September, so shortly after the UTMB finals in Confront. Um, and so, yeah, I can definitely second that. If you want to get a good try at the Pyrenean terrain, that's your shot right there. And it's got lots of different distances. You don't have to run 100 miles. You get the 100 miles, 100K, the 50K, but you also have a 20K. Um, and in this event, the European major of the UTMB World Series, so plenty of distance to try yourself in this beautiful environment.
Yeah, a little something for everyone here, and it kind of falls after what I would consider like the super weekend of racing with Western States, Lavaredo, Marathon du Mont Blanc, and the Mont Blanc 90K. This is kind of it's got its own weekend. It's got a little bit of a reprieve ahead of, more racing coming up with Eiger just around the corner. So this feels like it's also far enough away too that you could do something like, from an elite perspective, you could do something like the 100K here and then turn around to be maybe doing like UTMB, the 100 mile at the end of the summer. I mean, Katie Scheid pulled that out off pretty spectacularly last year. I don't know that you'd want to go to the well at this race. I know 2 years ago they also had some issue with the water on this race, where I think a number of athletes got sick in the inaugural edition of Val d'Aran, and that seems to have been rectified last year. I think it was a freak incident 2 years ago when that took place. But I've only
Yes,
heard
yes.
good things about the terrain.
Yeah, and actually they realized by scouting a bit wider that it was coming from the water that was not at the aid station, but from the creeks that people are drunk out of while on the course,
Mm.
because that actually happened to a lot of hikers and people who were not in the course during that event. So there must have been something somewhere um, would have polluted temporarily one creek that a lot of people went by and drank out of. So yeah, if you're out in the
Yeah, I
mountains,
think
take your
particularly when it's hot. Let's say when it's hot and you're running out of water between aid stations, you do begin to rely on those creeks. And I've seen it at races in Worlds in Portugal in 2016. We had these long, long exposed climbs with no water in sight and high alpine cow pastures everywhere. And I definitely watched many an athlete drink from things that I don't think I would drink from. And I was like, well, at least you won't get sick right away. Like, it'll take a little bit of time before you get ill. But yeah, it's, you make a calculated decision out there, calculated risk. But that is a reason that, I carry a filter bottle around here when I'm running in the Cascades. If I'm going to be dipping from creeks, I've got a filter bottle with me so that I'm just not risking it at all.
yeah, yeah. I've learned that the hard way, Corinne. It's like carry a water filter or wet truck for Giardia. And you're right, it doesn't hit you right away. You just kind of bruise and wait, and then yeah, then it's everything but fun. Um,
Yeah.
and
Everything but fun is a good way to describe it.
yeah, and so for this UTMB major, so we've already had Canyons take place over in the U.S. And so this is the second major taking place. The European one and the last one in December would be the Asia Pacific Doi Inthianan in Thailand. Um, same as last year. And so there's a total of 225 automatic qualifications for the UTMB World Series final, um, which are for the great age group winners. And that we cannot tell you how many people will qualify because it depends on how many people there are in each category. But then the guaranteed things that we already said is the top 10 men, top 10 women overall get their automatic entry into the UTMB World Series final. And these are a few recap images of the Trail Alsace Grand Est that took place in the eastern part of France, close to the border with Germany, and the castles that those runners ran past were absolutely insane. Like, they literally ran through history. Oceania here on these images took the win. It's Emily Schmidt, who did really well in the shorter distances in 50K. Taking the win.
Yeah, and then was top 10 at Trail Worlds as well in the 80K distance.
Yeah. That was an incredible performance from Maite. Like, she smashed that 100 mile. And she will be back at it this weekend.
Yeah, that's a lot. It's a lot of racing.
Yeah, it is, eh?
And again, we're waiting for our lead women to come through this 28K mark. We did get to see our leading men come through this aid station about 30 or so minutes ago at this point. They came through with at 10:02 local time, I think. But I think that's 30 minutes off. I think that's assuming that they were going to start at 7 a.m. So yeah, they came through here about 20 or so minutes ago. It looks like we've got camera runner footage picking up on that small right-hand side of our screen.
I think that's a mountain biker in that section, and he's probably going to go as hard as he can to catch up with our lead runners. Or there is an aid station not too far from this area. Once you drop down on the other side, I'm going to see if I can hear something.
Yep, there they are. We just saw a runner go by. Our camera bike is stuck on that little step up, but he should be able to make contact here really quickly with Raoul, it looks like. We do expect our women to be through the top of the 28K mark in about 10 or so minutes, with Oana potentially having about a 10-minute lead over second and third positions at the 28K mark. I feel like we do a lot of squinting at our screens here behind the scenes, getting really close to the computer, trying to identify people. So again, this is our drone up at the 27.5 or 28 kilometer mark on your live tracker. And if you're looking for a runner specifically that you're trying to follow along at home, you can go over to live.utmb.world. There you can find the live tracker for every runner that's in the race, including our top men and top women. But if you were looking for someone specifically, you can search by bib number, by first name, by last name, by country of origin, etc., and you will be able to track down where they are on the course, or at least what aid station they have moved through most recently. And I just have to point out one more time that generally cameras make things look flatter than they are. And despite that fact, this still looks very, very steep as we watch more men descend off the top of that 28K mark. It sounds like we are going to go to a quick commercial break. Stay with us. Our lead women should be through here shortly, and we should have more images from the lead pack of the men's race as well. Don't go anywhere.
This actually might be Oceania here with the white top. So commercial break, but I think we have her.
Yeah, she split through it.
Okay, so maybe
a minute ago. So I do think that that is her.
Dacia, partenaire automobile officiel de l'UTMB World Series.
Yeah, you better. Yeah, you better.
Yeah.
But we are live, and on our screen right now is our leading lady. We realized that it was her just as we were cutting to commercial break. So it's really cool that we're getting to see her descend from the top of the 28-kilometer mark right now.
Oh,
she
yeah,
came through there just about 3 minutes ago.
Oh, what happened there?
I think she took a little bit of a tumble, and the runner in front of her stopped to make sure she was okay.
Good man. Hopefully she...
Yeah, not easy descending in there. I bet it's greasy, it's steep, it's rocky.
Yeah, so hopefully nothing too major happened to Oceania. That, again, had a really stellar race at Mont-Blanc Marathon 2 weeks ago, taking third ahead of a pretty stacked field. And once again, Oceania Cortazar, who's done so well. I think she has won in the past Zigama, which is one of the quintessential technical races and on mud and rocks and all that. So she is comfortable on that kind of terrain, and yet you see like how she has to balance herself. So it is a truly challenging terrain. So here we might finally have caught up with our lead man, Raul. And that must be a bit of a challenge. You can see water on the trail, so it must be very slippery, but this doesn't seem to slow him down too much. Our young Spaniard runner.
Normal.
So there we go. On the right hand side of your screen, you get the first man. On the left hand side of your screen, you get the first woman with the white t-shirt. And there we go. I think that's the aid station.
Yeah, he should be coming to it imminently based on the live tracker. And I think we had
It
some
looks
questions,
flat.
you know, would she feel good post, you know, just racing Mont Blanc Marathon just, you know, what, 2 weeks ago? That's a lot of running in the legs, but 28K in, she's running super, super well. So Mont Blanc Marathon might have been the perfect warm up for this race, if anything.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's the thing. If you can handle a hard marathon, oh, and there she goes. She's made the move and she's pulling away now, opening up the stride on this more runnable um, single track. She is on the roll and looking really good. So maybe we have our own answer here. Oceania Cortazar is not tired, but on a roll from the Mont Blanc Marathon.
Yeah, as soon as she hit that more runnable, more smooth looking terrain, it seemed like she was able to open up a little bit as opposed to that rockier stuff up top that she was slipping around a bunch on, kind of having to balance and teeter a little bit there. So really good to see her be able to open up the legs as soon as things became a little bit more buffed out on that end. And the drone's gonna go back up the climb to try to pick up second and third position. Curious to see what kind of gap she has opened up over the chasing women. Again, it should be two more Spanish athletes making their way up to the top of that climb. But I think she's going to have quite a sizable lead. Maybe, oh, we got an official split through. She's got a 7-ish minute lead over Anna Kamant right now. We should be picking up Anna on the descent here. Your eyes might be better than mine as far as discerning what kits they're running in, but our second place woman should be in this pack, moving, I think, pretty well down this steep, steep descent.
I'm glued to the screen to indeed try to find her.
I think she's in the blue top, overtaking the runner in the red singlet right now.
That would be my guess, indeed, as well. I think this is her, Anna Comet.
Yeah, Scarpa would be that like bright blue color, right?
Yeah, and I think I can just get a glimpse of the ponytail. So there she is. You've got your second place female runner here on the descent, and as you were saying, about 7 minutes back from the lead, but still moving at a really good pace. And again, 7 minutes, it seems like a lot, but again, that course is relentless all the way until the end. So that last climb, you will see the images. Like, you're gonna have to stay with us until the end, because on that last part of the last climb, like, truly runners are not moving fast at all. And so if you're feeling good, you can make up many minutes per K on your competitors. So you're never really safe, and that's what we saw once again last year in the men's race, where Yang Qiao Yun came back after technically we hadn't seen him the whole race. He wasn't in the lead pack, and then he reeled him in at the bottom of the climb, and then that's where he started to go into racing mode and truly pulled away from everyone in beautiful fashion. And you can see the trees. It is very windy up on that ridge.
Yeah, very little shelter through that section as well. Obviously, these big grassy exposed ridge lines that are just absolutely breathtaking, but offer little respite from the weather. Our e-bike camera is back on our first place male, I believe. This looks like some fast single track through the woods. We did see earlier that there was some water, some moisture from this morning's rainstorm still on the trails there. Curious to know how slippery it actually is out there. Looks like the e-biker's having a bit of fun, if I'm being completely honest.
Oh yeah. When they have the chance to let go of the brakes and use, as we say, the death grip, you don't touch the brakes at all. You just hold on to the handlebar. That's probably opening up their smiles, because they are world-class mountain bikers, and obviously that could potentially create a bit of frustration when they have to pump the brakes to stay behind a runner. So when they're being told that they can go full gas to pick up another runner or get to another location on the race, they certainly take advantage of it. And I think it's cool that we get the images of that, even though there's no runners. It gives you a perspective of what the runners will shortly run on. And you see, after having such a long uphill, um, the downhill will be almost just as long to go back to the same valley and then branch back up into another one and into the last second and last big climb of the race. And there we go. I think we caught up with him. Here's Raul.
Yeah, and our top four men are all through that Mont-Romy's aid station at the 36-kilometer mark. Again, Raul, the young Spanish athlete, still leading the way there on his way to the 40-kilometer aid station. That's kind of in the bottom of the valley before that final climb that you were just talking about. Aritz still in second. Bernard still in third. Marcos Ramos has moved into fourth position, it looks like. And right now, I mean, it's very tight still at the front of the pack. There's about a 3-minute gap between Raul and Aritz. They came through that last checkpoint. Yeah, all of 3 minutes between the two of them, and then only 45 seconds back was Bernard in third position, and just, less than 20 seconds back from him is Marcos. So really the top four men only separated by about 4 minutes total. So still very, very tight racing at the front of the men's field. It's, there's nothing certain yet. We like to say the race is not over until it's over. We've seen late changes in the lead in the final descents of races. We saw that, I think, in both OCC races last year at the UTMB finals in the 55-kilometer distance. So, we expect, wire-to-wire wins are, I think, very rare in sport. So really exciting to see the men within 4 minutes of each other at that 36-kilometer aid station. And we'll get another split from them actually in not all that long, as they have a descent down to the 40K mark. We expect them there in the next 10 to 12 minutes or so.
Yeah, and so you went down a little bit in the rankings, and we had Marcos Ramos, who's familiar with those trails because he did run the CDH last year, and he took 5th, so he will be comfortable. He will know the course as well, so that could potentially be a competitive advantage for him to come back. Marcos Ramos Gonzalez currently in 4th place, not too far back, as you said. That will keep things exciting and spicy until the end.
Yeah, and going back to the women's race, just to see on the live tracker what that split back is to Monica. So again, Spain still going 1, 2, and 3 in the women's race. And it looks like, so again, there's 7 minutes between first and second, and it looks like there's about 5 minutes or so between second and third. So a little bit more daylight as far as spread goes between those women. And we expect those to hold, at least it's projected to hold, through to the next aid station. In races like this, where there's very distinct climbing and very distinct descending, I do think that it's more common for us to see slight changes. Just someone might be descending better and climbing worse type of thing. And it's like, you hope that the race ends on the thing that you are feeling strongest at that day, be it climbing, descending, or flat. It does not always work to your favor, but you sure hope it's going to be your day. And so I'll be curious to see, obviously Oana is climbing the best out of this field right now. My question is, are those women behind her descending as well or better even? This is just speculation. I'm curious to see what that looks like at that 36-kilometer checkpoint, just to see if that gap is holding, extending, or coming down a little bit based on strengths. Because again, there is one more big climb to come, but then it's a downhill to the finish. And so if someone is descending particularly well, that's something that the racers will have to keep in their minds as far as, how much of a gap do I need to have going into the final descent to hold off so-and-so who's chasing.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'm still impressed by Raul, the way he's running. He looks comfortable. He doesn't look like he's overreaching.
He looks confident.
So,
from the backside of what we can see, I would say he looks confident right now.
Yeah, and doesn't look like he looks smooth, which at least means like he's not pounding his legs, and it makes me believe that he could keep up. He could keep up with that. So good for him. Good for him to go for it in the early stages. He trusts his ability and his current fitness. And yeah, we're
Yeah, he
talking about
has run a 50K before.
Go ahead.
I just want to point that out because we were talking about how he's got maybe a little bit less experience. He's definitely raced predominantly in Spain, I believe, but he has run a couple 50Ks back to, 2021, 2020. So I feel like while, he's the young gun in this field, he's also moving really well and has experienced what 50 kilometers feels like in the legs, which is really important, I think, to have the confidence to know where to push and where to hold back a little bit in these events.
Yeah, yeah, very true, Corinne.
It's not perfect, but it is helpful to know what, when you're jumping into the unknown, like we know Bernard is jumping into the unknown a bit more. It's really hard to know, what are my legs going to feel like at kilometer 42 if I've never run that far before. But there's a smile to the cameraman. He's looking really, really comfortable right now.
Yes, he is indeed, and so that's always good. Like our camera mountain bikers are like, okay, I'm gonna go in front, give you a little bit of a picture of how this guy is feeling, and he's in control. Before diving into that single track, looked left over his shoulder to see if anybody was coming, but no, there's definitely nobody in sight because he's probably has at least a minute and a half, if nothing has changed. If they're all running at the same pace. There you go, 700 meters difference between the two runners, the first and second, as you can see on your screen. And yeah, you were talking about
getting
the
closer to
unknown
that aid station.
Yeah, sorry. About the unknown in terms from a physical perspective, but also from a nutrition perspective. When you're stepping into those big longer distances, sometimes for up to a marathon, you can get away with not having your nutrition dialed. But over 5 hours of racing, like if you don't have this to the T, that will come back and hit you eventually. But so he's got that in the bag as well. So that's good. That's good.
Yeah, it's definitely, people who make that jump up in distance or who are doing their first, maybe they've done a road marathon but never done a trail 50K. They think it's only 10K longer. It's a little bit more than that when you think of time on feet. But I was saying that, he's getting closer to the aid station because people have come back up the trail and are cheering him in. And so it's nice. It's nice for him to be able to see these people as he makes his way into the 40K aid station. He's probably got about a kilometer and a half to go before he makes it into that aid, but it is always nice when you start to see spectators and fans out cheering because you know that you're getting closer to that next aid.
Yeah, and on the end of that single track, I think this is where it is. It's going to open up. He's going to get onto the road, if I recall correctly from last year, and he's going to be into that little village for another K or so, and then the aid station will be there.
I plopped this in the chat, but if you're watching on the live.utmb.world site, or if you're watching directly on YouTube, you can use that live chat function. Most of you, it'll automatically show up as top chat, but you can switch it to live chat to talk with other people who are currently watching the live feed. Let us know who you're cheering for and let us know where you're cheering from. I know that hopefully no one else in the US is awake right now doing this like I am. Hopefully people are still comfortably asleep, but yeah, drop us a note in the chat as to who you're cheering for and where you're cheering from. But now, second man on our screen, Aritz, he looks like he's moving really, really comfortably as well.
Yeah, I mean, Aritz has done really well, and as we know, many longer distances. Oh, but did you see right behind him? Bernard is not even 30 seconds back. And as we know, Bernard is also a very strong mountain runner, so he'll be able to. Oh, Arts just turned around and be like, oh, somebody's creeping up on me. So Bernard is
Well, it's
right
hard when
there.
the camera person. It's hard with the camera person right behind you because sometimes you can't hear the next runner coming up on you, and so you see these runners always looking over their shoulder because they're like, is it the camera person or is it the next runner? And sure enough, right now it's the next runner creeping up on him. These two men are going to come into the 40-kilometer aid station, I think, together, and only, maybe 3 to 4 minutes or so behind our race leader.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see if they're going to try and work together or kind of work against each other, because Aritz is Spanish and then Bernard is Italian, but probably understand each other fairly well.
Bernard's probably just cracking jokes the whole time too. He and his brother Martin are both quite funny. Their English isn't great, but despite that, you know how funny they are. I got to spend some time with them at Ultra Trail Cape Town last year. They had this whole saga where one of them left a phone in an Uber or a taxi, and it was this whole saga trying to get it back, and there was lots of charades involved of trying to explain what was happening. It was a whole situation, but very entertaining to watch. I just was looking at the time splits back on the women's side. Again, through that 28K mark, our top 3 women have all come through there. Oana's leading by about 6 minutes or so, 7 minutes or so over Anna Comet. And then Monica is back in 3rd. She's 5 minutes out of 2nd. And 4th has also come through, the Colombian runner. She is about 6 minutes out of 3rd. So a little bit tighter. I thought there was a bigger gap between the top 3 and then the 4th, 5th, and 6th place female, but right now 4th is not all that far back. The track are running a lot closer together than the predicted splits on that side. But a pass has been made on the men's side. Yeah. Bernard has moved in front of Aritz, and I think Aritz will try to stay just right on his wheel, not let the elastic break. Just kind of latch on and let Bernard do the work on this section. It's not quite like cycling where, someone's going to be in a slipstream of another athlete, but it is kind of mentally nice where you can just follow someone else's footsteps. You don't have to think quite as much. You can just kind of latch on and let it flow a little bit. But yeah, they will be likely coming into that aid station together as they make their way to the 40-kilometer mark. On the right-hand side of your screen, you do see the first place male Raul running onto the tarmac, running into town here, just outside of the 40-kilometer aid station. He should be there momentarily, and then we'll get a better idea of what the split is back to the chasing pack of Aritz and Martin, or not Martin, I'm going to keep calling him his brother's name, Bernard, on their way into the 40-kilometer mark. It seems almost unnatural to not see both their names on the start list because they both do race a lot of the same races together, which has to freak out their competitors as identical twins. But just Bernard racing today, currently sitting in 2nd position on his way into the 40-kilometer mark. But here is your race leader coming into the aid station with a fully loaded mandatory kit on his back.
Yeah. We talked about this earlier, and I'm just impressed by his stride. It looks almost like the ultra shuffle, but with incredible efficiency. His knees don't go up at all, and yet he's moving really well. That reminds me of almost a stride you must have been looking a lot at during Western States as a Courtney. I feel like it's a bit of a similar stride. Doesn't get the knees up, but still is extremely efficient, still 4 foot.
Yeah, it's just there's no wasted energy, right? It's kind of this low. You have to pick your feet up so that you don't run into rocks and sticks and stuff with kind of that low leg swing, right? But it's, I think, very economical in trail and ultra to kind of have that lower leg swing, kind of not as much of a high return posteriorly and back, but really, really smooth. Yeah, it doesn't look like he's moving, quote unquote, that fast, but he is moving very fast and very efficiently. But it looks very different than someone like Jim Walmsley or, you know, the East African runners on the road, for example, who have that high and kind of like long, exaggerated return posteriorly in their stride. So yeah, it kind of feels very shuffly, but clearly moving very efficiently. 40 kilometers into his day,
Yeah.
looking to try to secure a pretty big win, I would say, in his like early career.
And I think here he's being told about what's coming next as he's coming into the RTS aid station. And I think that is the last place where they can also see their crew at the aid station. Because after that, I think there will be one more aid station, but without any crew access. He looks good. I gotta say it. He looks good. He looks relaxed. He looks strong.
See if we can pick up audio from the aid station. It's always good to hear kind of what's going on with these runners.
Actually, I might have been wrong. Unless he doesn't have crew. But I'm not sure whether he had crew access or not.
In a lot of these shorter races, I feel like they have very limited crew access. Like OCC, for example, is basically an uncrewable race as far as what's allowed out on the course. So wouldn't surprise me. But again, what is the split to this aid station? He was very efficient there, got just what he needed, and is on his way out once again. So Raul's on his way, and you can see now second and third. Again, Aritz has moved back into that second position. Bernard right there behind him. And look who's on his right-hand side.
That seems to be a bit early to pick up. I don't know what the rules are when it comes to crewing.
Yeah, they'll have been told where on this street they can aid their runners. They're clearly, entering town, entering the aid station. But Aritz has moved into that second position with Bernard just behind. Back in third.
So Raul has made up more time on second and third in that descent. He's pulled away a little more, and more importantly, as you did probably see, coming in the aid station and out is almost the same path. So I was wondering whether they would cross, because psychologically then you kind of look at each other, assess each other's. But no, he will be long gone by the time Aritz gets to the aid station.
Yeah, out of sight, out of mind. That's a big thing in these races. You forget that person's out there. Honestly, Raul's probably an athlete that these other athletes might not have been worried about, right? Might not have been someone that they were saying like, okay, like he's off the front early, don't have to worry about him. He'll come back to us. But right now, he's off the front in a pretty big way, stopping to get some high fives.
Oh, that's
and
cool.
On into the aid station. Looking really calm. Both of them are in the aid station together, filling water. Looks like Barnard's going to get out of there first. As Aritz has some help getting.
Did he pick up flasks? Like full flasks? 'Cause I'm a bit worried if he's leaving without water. Because he didn't fill up his flasks, did he? Like, he just drank, correct?
I don't think so. Not right there, no.
Huh.
But it's possible he was exchanged flasks with Martin on his way into the aid station there. But yeah, we've got official splits now, 1, 2, and 3. and 4. Marcos is also in there as well. So all 4 men have come in through that aid station. Aritz and Bernard together, as we saw, they are under 3 minutes back. So it's not as big of a gap as it felt, if that makes sense. You know, 4 hours elapsed technically, and they fixed the trackers for us. Thanks, team on the back end. Trackers are now accurate on the website. So 4 hours elapsed for Raul, 4 hours and 45 seconds, 4:03:27 and 4:03:29, 4 second and third, and then fourth, 4:04:50. So just behind, not that far back. In 4th position is Marcos Ramos Gonzalez, hanging out in 4th. You know, is Spain going to make it a sweep on the men's side as well? Only time will tell. But we do have all 4 men through that 41 kilometer aid station as we speak.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm gonna make a wild guess because knowing that Marcos has kind of field advantage and he's raced here last year in the 100K. He knows what to expect in the last part of the race. I'm gonna.
This is really cool.
Suppose.
We've got so many people in the aid station right now. Oh my goodness.
Wow, it's chaos.
We just had a whole slew of men hit this aid station together. That looks like Mario and Alvaro and Bruno, Spanish runners and a Portuguese runner, all in there together in 5, 6, and 7. Honestly, this race is definitely not over yet. You've got our top 7 men within just about 5 minutes of each other. So really, really tight actually at the front of this men's 55K today. Again, 7 men through the 41 kilometer aid station. They're leaving this valley. They're going to make a big climb. Their next aided checkpoint is at 46K before, kind of at the saddle, before they ascend up to the final bit of climbing. And then again, it's going to be that long descent, about 8 kilometers or so from there up over the top down to the finish.
So you obviously know Bernard better than I do, but is his stride always like this, or is he showing signs of fatigue? I'm actually confused whether.
Well, I was just going to say the same thing. He's a very long. I was going to say he's a very long, gangly human being. Like, he's very tall and he's got very long limbs, and so I don't know. That it's very possible that this is like a very normal stride from him. He did look like this, I think, on bits of that downhill as well. So I think it's just like indicative of how he naturally runs a bit. Once again, very different running form than what we saw from Aritz and then what we saw from Raul. Again, Raul on the right-hand side of our screen right now. It's great that we have good footage from our camera folks on bikes. They're pushing though. Barnard's pushing really hard.
He's breathing horrible. His head's shaking a little bit. I think he wants to try maybe and break away from Aritz, but that's
yeah. I would say maybe he's trying to kind of break that elastic.
Yeah, and we've seen runners in the past like looking they were about to have a heart attack and yet like keep it together for another 100 Ks. Like I remember a few runners were like this, including Caroline Chavreau, for example. You'd thought like she was cooked, but no. And she would just keep on trucking, looking like she was like in the red zone. So perhaps that's just his style. Yeah, I think as you said, time will tell. But sure thing, Raul in the lead looks extremely well. We've got a short commercial break coming. But stay with us before we hit that big last climb.
like technically it's supposed to have. Oh, we're back. We are back as we watch the chase between second place Bernard and Aritz. They're saying, "Hey, car, move out of the way." Yeah, I would say the same thing. Obviously, it's a bit of a narrow path, but you know, you're driving at racers. I would maybe at least slow down and yield the road to these two men as they battle their way out of town. But yeah, Aritz is making a decisive pass heading into this climb. We'll see if this is kind of Bernard's breaking point or if he can just, you know, attach himself to Aritz as they head up there.
And there, Oceania Cortazar.
This is our lead.
Our lead
Yep.
female is making her way down. So as you can see, muddy, rooty, rocky trail that she seems to be navigating just fine, as opposed to our camera mountain biker, who will shortly catch up with her. Man, she's on a roll. This is exciting. She's 38 years old, so not one of those young guns, and still has it. Still has the fitness and the fire for racing and being competitive. Yeah, she's been in the circuit for over 10 years, which is super exciting. And obviously, she probably cares.
Yeah,
to
it's
do
really
well
cool
here
to watch. Yeah, I was just going to add to that. That's really cool to watch these athletes who are well into their late 30s, early 40s continue to throw down. I think it's, as a person who's in their early 30s, it's inspirational to know that I've got a good decade of elite racing maybe in front of me. It feels like I've been in the sport for a long time, but truly there's a whole lot more out there to experience, it would seem.
Yeah. No, that's true, and like in that same approach, which would give you another decade, is gentlemen like Ludovic Pomeray, who at 47 years of age won TDS and scored, what was it?
Yeah, I mean
11th or
Ludo's
13th
performance at
Western
States. Last year he was 6th. This year he finished just outside the top 10, I believe in 12th position.
Just in between. Yeah, I remember he missed the top 10. And there we go. This is Anna Comet chasing. She hasn't started going down yet. I mean, obviously she is on her way down, but what I mean is that steeper single track that goes across the dirt roads on the side of the mountain. So she'll take a hard left eventually and end up on the trail that on your right, Oceania Cortazar is running. And Anna looks like she's pushing hard.
Yeah, she's just about to the end. Yeah, she's just about to the end of the plateau section before she starts the descent that we can see Oana on the right-hand side, but running kind of gingerly down. Oh, that is very slippery mud right there. Oh my goodness. I was about to say running kind of gingerly, but it turns out, yeah, it's because this section looks like a bit of a sloppy mud pit there. Good to see her stay upright on that surface. And I do know that it looks like the trail dries out a little bit as she descends further down towards this aid station, and she'll be able to open it up a little bit more. Not have to run quite so protectively as she is right now on that upper section of the course.
Anna Comet certainly hasn't given up the fight. Pushing hard on those few steps. Transitioning back into a single track. I think this is where the little bridge is. Yeah, there is a bit of a gap between the first two ladies, 1.6K, as opposed to just over 700 meters in the men's race at that point.
Little water only checkpoint there.
Very quickly.
A little bit of
in
aid
and
there,
out.
or a little bit more. So it's officially that 36K aid station. Yep, before she hits like the main part of this descent down to the 40-kilometer mark. So we'll get a split here back to second and third, and not all that long. Curious. I mean, I think in my mind it looks like she's opened it up a little bit, but at the same time she had almost a 7-minute lead at the top of that last climb. So curious to see what the gap is between 1 and 2 at that 36-kilometer mark. And we should know that in the next, we'll call it 5 to 10 minutes.
Yeah, and I wonder when we're going to get more images of the lead men's. I don't know if we're going to be able to transition back with them. Probably not, because at this point they would have gone into the single track, which is extremely steep on the first part of the last climb. As we have more runners coming into Arties, the last major aid station where we've been confirmed no crew is allowed, with all the nutrition from NAC, which is the nutrition sponsor of the UTMB World Series, and so their products can be found at every aid station of every race of the UTMB World Series. Once again, course profile. This morning, starting at 7:30 local time, all the way up. After just over 2 hours of racing, they had made it to the first climb, and then going all the way down on kind of that bridge. We had lots of images of Tuc de Salana, and then a steep downhill first, and then into the forest, kind of circumnavigating that massive before dropping into the RTSA station at 40K, and then a longer, flatter section before that last climb. And you will see the last part of Tuc de Couva is incredibly steep part before diving literally into Viella and finish line, 55 kilometers and 3,300 meters of elevation gain.
What a cool race. I will say that every time I do commentary for a 50K race, I'm like, man, maybe I should race more 50Ks and less 100-mile races. And then we'll like do commentary this weekend for both the 100K and the 100-mile race that is happening at Valderon, and I'll be like, oh no, I really like 100-mile races. But it's these races are really fun to watch. These 4 to 6.5 hour races I think are really exciting, as far as like the ultra side of trail goes. And then obviously big fans all around of our trail running, our kind of sub ultra is what we call it in the US, races like the Golden Trail Series, like the 25K, 30K distances. So exciting to see more and more race coverage coming from all sides of the sport, from 20K races and vertical kilometers to 200 plus mile races. In my mind, it's cool that we get to highlight so many different aspects and styles that make up the trail and ultra running world.
Yes, Corinne, and I'd be interested because I want to ask you a question. You say, oh, sometimes you look at the 50Ks like, oh, it'd be fun to get back, but what's bringing you back to that 100-mile distance?
I think I just like suffering for an extended period of time, and it hurts a lot differently than the short stuff hurts. I think my most painful race I do every year is like 6-kilometer cross-country style races where it hurts so bad the entire time because you're running just so hard. But I think how I like to build my season allows me to race a bunch of different styles of running over the course of the year, from, maybe trail half marathons and cross-country style races to, I don't do a whole lot of road racing, but maybe a 5K or 10K on the road and a 50K in a build up to a 100-mile style race. But I think it's the long push, the weird hours, it's still very intense at times, but it's a different type of intensity. And I think that I have a natural predilection for that style of racing.
So you eventually in the build-up do at least a 50K. So you do get to have the faster, more intense before you go into your jam, and yeah, that different beast that
Yeah.
100 mile is. And it'd be interesting, like if you guys are listening and you've already competed in a 100 mile, like let us know why. What is your why for doing a 100 mile race and going into either the unknown if it's your first time, or can you say you go into the unknown every single time, knowing that in an ultras things, even if it's the same race, same course, things could go differently.
Yeah, it's trail running is such a cool sport in the sense that there's a little bit of something for everyone. There's a season in life for everything. There'll be seasons where I don't race a single 100-miler and I'll race more short distance stuff over the entire season. But I'm a sucker for the long. And we're unfrozen again. Thank goodness. We're all on Slack being like, what happened? Technology's not our friend. But yeah, just saying that, again, so many different styles of racing available to athletes these days at a very high level. And more than anything, I've gotten to use running as a way to travel and see a lot of different parts of the world. And to me, it's kind of like I go for the race and for the competition, but I'm also trying to go to races that are brand new to me as far as, a new location, a new experience. Actually, for the first time ever, or the first time in a number of years, I'm doing like a local to me race, and that is a 100-mile distance, and I'm really excited to like sleep in my own bed and make the short drive for the 8 a.m. start and get to run a bunch of trail in my backyard. So that will prepare for other races to come next year on a bigger world stage. But yeah, it's cool. Okay, so now we're gonna have an official split at the 36K mark. I just saw them scan
That's 8
on his bib.
that'd be 8 minutes.
Yeah, full 8 minutes there. So she's opened it up a little bit. She's gained another minute. She's put another minute into second place. So moving really well on that descent. Super impressive to see that gap continuing to extend a little bit. Knowing what we know, and that she's climbing really, really well. In addition to descending, it appears better than the women behind her.
7.
Yeah, I think what was it, like 171, and that's 175. So that's one more lap of the track that she's gained on Anna Comet. Anna Cortazar is pulling away, and once again, it doesn't seem to be at her relentless pace. She's just in control, doing her own thing, and that is enough. That is enough today to be in the lead with a 1.7 kilometer lead over second place Anna Comet, which is starting to get substantial. She's going to be at the bottom of the descent in probably some 10-15 minutes. And that would be 15 Ks away from the finish. Some hard and slow 15K. But still, she's getting closer to the line. And still looking very comfortable.
Yeah, and we'll have to see what the gap is to third as well. On the women's side, Monica was only about 5 or so minutes behind Anna at that 28 kilometer mark. So we'll see what that looks like. We'll know in the next couple of minutes if that gap has opened up there or not. But we do know that fourth, is not that far behind third. There's some podium battling to be had. There's people moving up. Actually, there's While Spain is definitely kind of the reigning top 5 favorites, we also have an athlete from Colombia in 4th in the women's race, an athlete from Great Britain in 6th, China in 7th, Brazil in 8th, Canada in 9th, and Brazil in 10th position. So a very international top 10 on the women's side, although dominated by Spain, the host country for sure. The men's race, on the other hand, is largely Spain, with Italy sitting in 2nd and Portugal in 5th, though we do know that the Italian athlete's going to be assessed a small time penalty due to receiving aid during this race, not just receiving aid outside of an aid station or just outside of the aid station, but because he received aid in general. There's no aid from personal crew and support in this 55K, just like OCC. They can utilize the volunteers in the aid stations to help fill soft flasks, etc., but that is the only aid that they are supposed to be getting. So right now, the men's side, largely Spain in the top 10. We've got Bernard from Italy sitting in 2nd/3rd, and a Portuguese athlete, Bruno, in 5th. I know that there's lots of people cheering for Bruno in the live chat, so we'll keep an eye on the Portuguese athlete as well, who's sitting well inside the top 10 and 5th. But yes, the women's race is shaping up to be a little bit more international through that top 10, whereas it is Spain's day for sure on the men's side of things.
Yeah, our Portuguese crowd always here, always very vocal and supportive of their athletes. Bruno Silva obviously has been also in the circuit for a long time and doing pretty well, especially in Portugal. So it is not surprising to see him here, and good for him. So as you mentioned, so if Bernard gets a 30-minute penalty, that will put him back quite a ways behind, and I don't know how far back he's going to be able to restart. He's going to be stopped 30 minutes, is that right? At some point.
Yeah, I think he's going to be
race.
assessed a 30-minute, which will unfortunately drop him well down in the standings. And it's kind of at that point, does he decide to continue or not? Unfortunately, might be part of that thought process, that decision process. But, you know, there are rules established for a reason. You're supposed to follow them to respect your competitors. And unfortunately, like, those little slip-ups, those little whoopsies, have to, you know, like, there has to be a standard as far as, you know, like, what are the rules that everyone's going to agree to follow. We just happened to witness it on the live broadcast. I'm sure there are other things happening out on the trail, but that we won't witness. Not everything gets caught in every single one of these races, but, you know, kind of good faith, trying to do the right thing there. And it sounds like, yeah, Bernard will be assessed a time penalty at the next checkpoint.
Right. Yeah, I mean, you're right, Corinne. It's a matter of who's the best on the day with what we've given, and those rules are here to level the field. So yeah, unfortunate, because he was, as much as he was working hard, he was doing extremely well, running in 2nd place, and I'm pretty sure had he not gotten the water, he would have still been doing very well. So yeah, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's like a tiny bit of assistance. Yeah, it's a very tiny bit of assistance for not much gain, but, you know, rules are rules for a reason. It allows you to move through an aid station more quickly, etc. It's just, you know, we're all going to try to follow whatever rules have been set forth for everyone else that we're competing against. So yeah, it's a bummer, but that is, you know, one race at a time, one lesson learned at a time as we watch. On the women's side, though, our 1st and 2nd place female athletes duking it out at the front. Currently an 8-minute gap between the two of them. Interesting to see kind of what is extended there. Wow, hopefully no one gets nailed by a car at that crossing. They're dirt roads, so hopefully cars are not moving that fast, but that would be a little bit startling to just plop down on a road and have a car just appear there in front of you.
Yeah. No, so as you said, 8 minutes between the first two women And then Oceania Cortazar is less than a kilometer away from the next aid station in Arties. So once again, she'll be into the village, and then shortly after at the aid station. So yeah, we asked the question. I don't know if we've made it clear, but actually there is no support crew anywhere at any aid station in the whole race. So it is, as you were saying, Corinne, similar to OCC, where in distance, probably here there's a bit more elevation, but runners can only rely on whatever is available at the aid stations. And Anna Comet here still looking really good. Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing the splits and see if it has changed at all.
Yeah, I'm curious. This is definitely a little bit more of a runnable section as opposed to some of the steeper descending. Anna's gonna get buoyed along by folks that are going to be cheering outside of this aid station as she makes her way into town. So I think that is also, pretty cool to see kind of that energy given back to the athletes. You can definitely be pulled along, buoyed along, accelerated forward just by getting a little bit of energy from people out there on the trail. So all these athletes are going to be benefiting from that right now. But yeah, just probably 3/4 of a kilometer or so to that aid station is just over 40K before they roll into town. This is the single track that we saw our lead men on. She's about to hit the tarmac just below her, and then she'll take that tarmac into the aid station as she runs towards the little kind of village city center there.
Yeah, and it must have been a little colder this morning because those yellow things, they're like arm warmers that she. I'm confused. Is that
Are those
arm
arm
warmers or is
warmers or
she
those
hand
soft
carrying
flasks?
her? Yeah. I was
I
gonna
think
say.
she's pulled her soft flasks out because she really wants to get to that aid station and get those things
Efficiently.
filled up. So my guess is that she is carrying soft flasks in hand, is what it looks like to me, to get those filled up at this upcoming aid station. Just kind of being prepped and ready to hit it and hand off a bottle to a volunteer and get stuff filled up and get on the road.
And maybe it's a headband on the other hand, but the same color, which could have been the source of the confusion. But yeah, she is prepared. Her experience, she knows the course, she knows where she's at, and she knows that she don't want to waste any second. She's moving really well in that road section, I gotta say. And like as we're talking about the types of strides here, the knees are going a little higher up, and.
Yeah, she's looking really smooth, though.
Yeah. And I want to say this again, like it is super exciting to see Oceania still on top. She's never been out, I would say, like, when she lines up, you can expect her to be in the top 10. But her performance at Mont-Blanc Marathon, as well as here, is another level. So once again, to see that at 38 years old, you can still be at the top is very exciting. There's not many sports that allow you to do that.
Yeah, hopeful that we see her at UTMB finals at the end of August / early September, towing the line at a race like OCC. She's had quite a good season thus far already. And I think that the women's race and the men's race in OCC and CCC in particular this year are shaping up to be mega competitive, really, really deep fields in OCC and CCC in particular. I feel like everyone I know is racing CCC, and the OCC fields over the last 2 or 3 years have just those races have elevated in such a big way that, like, while yes, I'm excited for UTMB, for the big long one, for kind of like the crown jewel of the finals, in my mind, OCC and CCC is some of the most exciting racing that happens all weekend.
Yeah, and because it just happens in a day, we get to follow those races extremely closely each year, and it's
Times
always
are tight,
fantastic.
too.
Yeah, and as you say, like the past few years, we've seen a massive shift from what only used to be the UTMB, and that was it, and the other races were kind of shorter distances, and that's it. Now each three distances, 50K, 100K, and 100 miles, are the final of the UTMB World Series, and all fields are absolutely stacked. And
Yep.
nothing is official, nothing is public yet, but there will be surprises announced, I think, next week when it comes to how deep the fields are going to be. And so there's some exciting news coming. And there she is, ladies and gentlemen. Oceania Cortazar coming into the RTS aid station, 40Ks into the race with what was an 8-minute lead. And once we'll have this split, we'll be able to know if she has increased that gap on second place.
What is she looking for?
Wow.
I'm not sure what happened there. Just looking for her way out, I guess. She must have plenty of water. Those must be arm sleeves, you're right, or headbands then, because I don't know why you would carry an empty soft flask and not fill it up. But she is out and on her way into the next climb, which will take her up to the saddle at 46K before popping up over the top. But that will, like, she'll have earned back a minute easily on that section just by getting in and out of there so quickly. And I'm sure there's a little bit of a tactic of like, I don't want any other runner to see me come in or out of this aid station. I want to be out of sight, out of mind. There are a lot of like spigots and fountains through these towns too. So for her getting out of the aid station, up, right, might be valuable as well, because instead of stopping for water in the aid and risk someone seeing you in the aid station, maybe, you know, getting water along the course on your way out of town from one of the local fountains would not be a bad strategy. But clearly ample water on her as she makes her way, or hopefully ample water on her, I guess, as she makes her way into what is going to be the final ascent of this 55-kilometer race.
Yeah, current, because I was looking at the map, and then so the next section is just going to be like just under 6 kilometers until the next water point. But that's going to be halfway up the last climb as well. So where the men's that we saw earlier still aren't. So that's going to be a very long 6 kilometers to cover. So hopefully she has water, or as you were saying, she has enough course knowledge to know that at some point she'll be able to get water from a creek or from a fontaine and refill. So yeah, interesting move here.
Yeah, because it's about, that climb is about 600 meters up to the next, where that next water point is. So in about just under 6 kilometers, they've got about a 700 meter climb. So not nothing by any means. Yeah, 600 or so meters, I guess, is what it boils down to. Our men are well on their way up to the steepest part of that climb, it looks like, before it mellows out a little bit into that checkpoint. I say mellows out. It probably doesn't mellow very much. Raul's tracker's gone on the fritz. He's not showing up on the tracker, but we know he's out there. We don't expect that to change. So don't freak out. But right now, like, the live tracker is going to say that Bernard and Aritz are in first and second. We do know that Raul left the 41-kilometer aid station, that he is well on his way up that climb. And once he gets to that 46-kilometer checkpoint, we should see that update once again in the live.utmb.world live runner tracking. We're waiting for our second place woman to make her way into this 41-kilometer aid station. There she is on your screen.
Anna Comet.
It's going to be sizable. It's going to be, I want to say that the gap has opened up probably a little bit more as well. That expeditious aid station stop will have also helped Oana move through that aid station really, really efficiently. Probably gain, let's say 60 seconds over someone who has to stop to fill bottles there. So yeah, it will be interesting to see what that actual time split is to Anna Comet when she makes her way into that aid station, probably in the next 3 or 4 minutes.
Yes, that's very true. That crossed my mind as well. Like, if you don't stop at all at the aid station versus someone who refills just even 2 soft flasks, that's a massive difference. These are 3 seconds that you can make if you have enough fuel and hydration to cover the next section. But for sure, Oceania lost nothing. She just stormed through the aid station without taking anything, and and it's still like, imagine for 50k, 55k, and 3,300 meters of climb and 3,700 meters of descent. They are not jogging. This is like full on run.
Yeah, there's no shuffling going on, despite the fact that it looked like Raul was doing what we call the ultra shuffle with that really low kind of foot lift off the ground, the lower knee drive, not much of kind of that like posterior swing of the leg in his stride. He was moving really, really smoothly. But yeah, so Anna Komet's about to hit that tarmac on her way into town. That the gap at 36K was 8 minutes. I want to say it's extended a little bit more coming into this aid station, with Oana really kind of pulling ahead in that first position as she heads into the final climb of the course. Moving really, really well. Looks super strong. Stride looks good. Doesn't look, overly labored. No hitch in her giddy up, I would say. That's my new descriptor. Or as I heard recently, she looks as cool as the cold side of the pillow or the underside of the pillow. Looks really, really relaxed as she makes her way onto the tarmac here into the aid station. But you're right, I think they all were quite warm. It looks like or quite cold early on. It looks like she also is carrying arm sleeves in her right hand there. So it seems like, yeah, those cooler morning temps with the 7:30 a.m. start in a bit of a rainstorm. Looks like that was probably quite chilly as they made their way up that initial 1,800 meter climb. Looks like things have warmed up and those arm sleeves are coming off, hopefully to get tucked away into a pack here as she makes her way into the 41 kilometer aid station. We get an official split between our first and second place women at this 41 kilometer mark.
I'm trying to hear if camera runner is communicating with Anna, and if we can hear anything back.
And the track.
She looks in the zone. I don't know if this is because she's pushing a little harder or she just doesn't want to be influenced or bothered at all by what's going on with the camera runner.
Yeah, it's hard because it's it's definitely can be distracting. It can be energy boosting. It can be stressful. There's definitely different emotions associated with having a camera on you at all times. Like, when do you exhale? When do you show concern? When do you show that maybe you're having a hard time or that you need to duck off the trail for a bathroom break? I think it definitely adds a little bit of something different to racing, to these new races or these kind of enhanced races that now have, dedicated live coverage, be it UTMB or the Golden Trail World Series or Western States that just happened,
Champs.
or Broken Arrow. World Champs with the live coverage. It definitely changes the race dynamic a little bit. And also, part of me, it'd be super awkward to be running alongside these runners and not say anything to them. But at the same time, being really cognizant that you're not supposed to be aiding the runner that you're following with a camera, right? Like, what can you or can you not say to them type of thing. Just because that is, I think, it's definitely, pacers in races, for example, which is a very American thing, particularly in the longer distances. What we found is that pacers, akin to on the roads when people are going after world records, it's not so much about aerodynamics or becoming more, metabolically efficient because you're in a slipstream. It's actually like the mental burden is lifted when you're running with other people. And so like that is a benefit, that is an advantage. And so trying to be cognizant too of like making sure that we can get this really cool footage without it changing the race or changing how the race plays out.
Yeah, no, and that's why also in some of the races, including Western States, you can have a pacer, but the pacer cannot be in front of you. Because indeed, like if you have a
No,
pacer in
yeah,
front
so
of
Western
you,
States you
you
can.
Can you?
Yeah, your pacer can be wherever they
It's
want at Western States. They can't mule for you.
mule.
So races in the U.S. that have pacers, they're not allowed to carry anything for you. They're not allowed to give you anything. They're not allowed to touch you physically, etc. I.e., when Keeley fell at Western States and dislocated her shoulder 200 meters from the aid station, no one could touch her because she had to get to the aid station to receive medical help, type of thing. But yeah, no, Badwater is the only race in the US with pacers where the pacer is required to run behind you, and you're both required to run outside the white line on the road, like on the shoulder. Like, pacers aren't allowed to be to your side or in front of you at all. But in every other race, pacers are allowed to be in front of you, behind you, next to you, etc. It does not matter.
Well, then we had gotten that one very wrong with Ruth. Yeah,
Yeah,
so
there's no
yeah, I
rules about
guess
that.
going back to the camera runners, I think they do help in a sense that a lot of the time when we have the race leaders, obviously there's nobody ahead of them, and they kind of plays the trails and sometimes could go off. And we've seen a couple of more than a couple of times actually, camera runners or mountain bikers bringing them back onto the trail. And so that is something you could call an advantage because you have someone with you, an extra pair of eyes who will not be in front of you guiding you, but will bring you back if you're making a mistake or taking the wrong path. But that can be balanced with, as you were saying, having a constant pair of eyes and a camera, and then all of us watching at the same time while you're out racing. So I think it's hard to say whether it's a positive or a negative, but I think it is becoming a big part of our sport, and for the better, because that helps also people who maybe don't really know about trail running or don't know about some regions and get to discover those beautiful places, those beautiful trails, and be like inspired to take on trail running or put on a pair of running shoes and go out for a jog, and in some cases even come and sign up for those races for the next year. So at least for us, it is definitely a positive. Otherwise, we'd be out of job.
Yeah, totally. No, we definitely benefit from getting to do this kind of stuff all the time. But again, we'll be back with some official splits and live updates from both the front of the men's race and the women's race. But we are going to take a really quick commercial break, and we'll be right back in just a couple of minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Dacia, partenaire automobile officiel de l'UTMB World Series.
The Ultra Trail de Mont Blanc is the Super Bowl of trail running.
3 times I've raced UTMB. I feel like I've underperformed every time.
He sets the biggest goals possible.
I kind of say it's like digging a hole. It gets tiring, it gets hard, and for some reason you just go, I'm just gonna keep digging. The places where you really grow are the ones that keep kicking you in the teeth.
better. Yeah, you better.
All right, we're back, although our image on the screen is a little bit frozen. We are back in your ears as we wait to get some more live images from the course again. 4 hours and 50 minutes elapsed. Our top 3 women, giving an update, have all come through the 41-kilometer aid station. Oana has opened up her lead. Martina is just catching people up on the women's splits through that 41-kilometer aid station. Oana extended her lead a little bit, just as we thought she did. She's got about 10 minutes over Anna, and then there's about we'll call it 6-ish or so minutes, 6-7 minutes back to Monica in third position. So Oana is opening up her lead, heading into the final climb of the course. Quite exciting to see. And then we actually have our opening splits through, or our next splits from the 46-kilometer mark, which is again kind of that saddle during the final climb. Right now it's showing that Raul is in first, and he's got about a 2.5 minute gap over Marcos.
So Marcos has made the move.
Yep, followed closely by Aritz. And Bernard's split isn't coming through there, and I think it's likely some fading going into that, but also he's going to receive a time penalty at that aid station, and so he might not be given a split at that aid station for 30 minutes. So he might fall down the course rankings right now as we speak. But yeah, Aritz in third. And then we also have our 4th and 5th place man moving up as well. They are both through there, 2 and 4:54 elapsed. So 1, 2, and 3 very close together still. And then 4 and 5 only, 2 or so minutes back from them. So very, very actually 4, 5, and 6 only 2 or so minutes back from 3rd and 4th. So really, really tight racing on the men's side right now.
Yeah, and if the estimations are actually accurate as well, there should be only 1 minute separating Raul and Marcos Ramos Gonzalez at the finish line. So depending on who's able to climb the strongest on that second part of the last climb and descent as well. Like Marcos, as we said, like he was 4th and has moved into 2nd. He might have the field advantage and know how to pace himself. Will Raul be able to hold him back? Raul looked extremely fast on the downhill, so that's going to be exciting. That's going to be extremely exciting all the way until the end, because that's a long and steep descent back on the backside of the last peak into Viela, into the finish line. So wow, we're going to be on our toes all the way until the end.
Yeah, it's going to be an exciting finish for sure with those guys duking it out, likely all the way to the finish line. Who's going to have the most gas on that final downhill, I think, is really going to tell the story of the day. I don't know that it's going to be decided on that final uphill. I think it's going to be really tight heading into that downhill, and whoever's got the largest set of wheels going into it is going to be who's going to come out on top.
Yeah, it's good to see, like, again, very different strategies, and to cover a 55 kilometers, Marco Ramos Gonzalez starting conservatively, like a bit further back, and then Raul like taking it out almost from the gun. And actually, right now, hypothetically, only 1 minute will separate them from the finish line after two very different racing styles. While in the women's field, it's a bit different, as we've seen. And Anna Comet sitting in second, but losing another 2 minutes on Oceania Cortazar after at the 40K aid station. So with some 15K to go.
Yeah, it seems like on the women's side things are solidifying a little bit heading into this final uphill versus on the men's side it seems like things are only being shooken up a bit more, and that to me is very exciting and very kind of like waiting with bated breath. But we'll see if we can get some live images from the course. I know that our current camera is a bit frozen. It might be that our camera runners and camera bikes are putting our runners kind of in between where cameras can physically be on the course. We'll see if we can get an update from our team behind the scenes. I'm hopeful that we have a drone in the sky or a camera positioned at the top of the final climb before they head into the descent. It'd be really, really wonderful if we're getting some images from that kind of final kick of the course as runners head into that final, 8 or so kilometer, less than 8 kilometers because it's 8 kilometers from the 46K mark. Hopefully we'll get some more images as runners head into that kind of that final long, steep downhill to the finish line.
Yeah, correct. And last year we had the chance to have a drone, and this is how I was able to tell you how steep that final part of that last climb is, like straight onto the mountain into a grass field, and it looked extremely painful and slow for everyone. So hopefully the weather allows us to have those images again and have a gauge as well on where Raul and Marcos are from one another, how far apart they are. It'd be good to see them tip over. So please bear with us as we're hoping for more images of that PDA 55K. And yes, something we were discussing of live as this year, because there's a bit of a change in the roles of the UTMB World Series. The runners here will qualify, like whoever gets a spot for UTMB will get a spot for the UTMB final for both 2023 this year and 2024, because two different roles overlap. And so they actually do qualify for both.
Yeah, I thought it was an either or scenario where you could use it for this year or use it for next year.
Yeah,
Versus
so
like
did
being an
I.
auto qualifier for 2 years in a row.
So yeah, no, you get the double whammy. You're in for both years if you qualify. So being a